Week 11 is now in the books. Now, a few things that we're going to talk about tonight. Well, Dickinson State, no longer the only team that has locked up a playoff berth for 2024. And there were two players that were responsible for 6 touchdowns over the weekend. And finally, we're going to talk about actually for just a little bit, a two-sport athlete, but it's not the two sports that you would often think about when one of them is football. We're going to talk about those things tonight here on Midwest Sportsnet. I've been talking for a while already. I can tell you right now, we're just going to go ahead and go into it. I need to be the poster boy for a few things, and one of them is Vicks cough drops. So I'll just say that out there right now. And then later on, if they want to sponsor the broadcast, that'll be great. But we'll just go ahead and take care of that now. Top 5 performances. Hi, I'm Joey McWilliams. Glad that you're with me tonight. And I have a graphic that's already up there that needs to be hidden. So I'll bring it out just a little bit later on, testing the graphics a little bit early. We have so much to talk about. Top 5 performances. We're going to get to those a little bit later on. We have some shout outs tonight as well for some players and folks that I'm looking forward to talking about. But we have to go beyond the 5 first. And we are going to do that right now. The number 1 team in the country is Kaiser, taking on Florida Memorial, and Kaiser now officially is in. Kaiser wins, or at least secures the spot from the Sun Conference with victories over now Florida Memorial, St. Thomas, Southeastern. No one can take out Kaiser's automatic playoff bid. They get to represent the Sun Conference, and congratulations to them. Absolutely the case. That's the way it needs to be. Shea Spencer, 15 for 20 passing, 270 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns, no picks. Andrew Burnett, 16 carries, 114 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns. And as we've gotten the show started tonight, let's go ahead and give our first shout out. That goes to Michael Brooks' grandson, Wyatt, who is a member of this Kaiser's team. And you know what, Michael? He's got 1 ring already, looking to try to get a second ring as Kaiser is going to be playing in the playoffs again this year. Almost has a second ring already. It was a hard-fought game against Northwestern 2 years ago. But Kaiser, the defending national champions, coming back to the playoffs once again, and a victory over Florida Memorial. Shout out, by the way, to Elisa, who's watching from Northwestern Oklahoma. Thank you for watching tonight. The Cardiac Kids, we'll talk about them in just a moment. Dave, roll Stangs. Dale, roll Stangs. Jeff, roll Stangs. Jeff, by the way, I need a pronunciation here. If you can help me out here, is it Cutrer? Is it Coutrer? How do you pronounce that last name? Because if I say it live on the air, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing it right. That's what you have to do. All right. And Michael, yes, I'm taking care of my voice. Have to do that. And, of course, great game last night. All right. Sorry about the cough drop. If you are new to the broadcast, we save our top 5 performances to the end because we have to go beyond the 5 because there were so many other great performances in the NAIA this week, 46 games involving NAIA football programs, and we don't want to leave any of those out. Some of these fantastic performances that were there, whether they were individual or team performances, we want to get those out there. And so the show has kind of gotten longer over the course of its life here on Midwest Sportsnet, but that's all right because we enjoy talking about NAIA football and talking about your kids as well. Jana, thank you very much for stopping by the program tonight. A fantastic night for Andrew, 16 carries, 114 rushing yards, as we mentioned, and 3 rushing touchdowns. Katrier is close. All right. I will go with that, and I'm going to save that very much. Okay, here we go. Let's keep on moving now. Kaiser, no doubt, number 1 team in the country and will be until further notice, and that likely will be sorted out in the playoffs. There we go. Grandview, the number 2 team in the country, 26-7 over Peru State. Peru State gets out early. Grandview comes back. Really no surprise right there. Grandview is headed for a showdown with Graceland, and that will happen next week in Des Moines. Both teams are 5-0 in Hart North play. Grandview, we believe, is already in the playoffs right now. I mean, there's no way around that. Even if Graceland gets the win next week, which we'll talk about that on Thursday night, Grandview, with no losses on the schedule right now, far enough along in the NAIA official rankings, not ratings, Grandview, we believe, is in. Haven't officially locked it in yet, like Indiana Wesleyan, who officially locked it in, the number 3 team in the country in the official NAIA rankings, not ratings. 9-1 now with a 31-14 victory over Siena Heights, securing a share of the Mid-East title in the Mid-States and getting the playoff spot. Kyle Antoine, 13 for 30 passing, 150 passing yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick, had 3 carries for 33 yards and a rushing touchdown as well. And Roosevelt Cash, once again, big afternoons, 27 carries, 150 rushing yards. Let's go out to the Frontier, where the number 4 team in the country, Montana Western, moves to 7-1 with a big-time victory over Carroll. They do it at home. It's senior day there in Dillon, and the Bulldogs go out in style. Carroll got up 14-13, and the magic number for the Saints was one with a win. Didn't happen, though. Montana Western, every week. Missouri Western. No, it's Montana Western. Comes back, 2 touchdowns. Pete Gibson, 2 rushing touchdowns in the fourth quarter there. Michael Palandry, once again, 23 for 32, 239 yards passing, 1 passing touchdown, 1 interception as well. Carried the ball 19 times for 89 yards. Montana Western now is tied with Carroll. They are both 6-1 in the Frontier Conference in league standings, which means that nothing is decided for that automatic bid from the Frontier Conference. Now, I realize there are some folks that are all about the Frontier Conference getting 4 teams in the playoffs. That's not going to happen. There are many who believe the Frontier Conference deserve 3. I don't know that I'm in that group yet. Give me one more week, but I'm not ready to say I'm in that group because there are too many other teams out there whose resumes, I believe, stack up very nicely against that. But the point I want to make right now, while we're still on Montana Western, is the fact that the Bulldogs have not secured the automatic bid just yet. If UMW loses next week against Eastern Oregon and Carroll comes away with a victory, Carroll would have only 1 loss in conference, and Montana Western, you know what? I have been to Missouri Western within the past 12 months. I've actually done official play-by-play for the Missouri Western Griffins football broadcast about a year ago, and know some people up there. It's geographically closer, but I'm sorry for all the UMW folks. I don't know why I can't say Montana Western. I picked Montana Western to come out of the Frontier Conference. If Montana Western wins next week, then they will take the automatic bid with the win over Carroll. Let's move on to a team whose name I can pronounce. Morningside, the number 6 team in the country, 9-1 and 9-0 in league play with a big-time victory over Waldorf. No surprise there. Zach Chevalier, still the top passer in the nation, 17 for 24 passing, 237 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns. 3 of them went to Drew Sellen. That we've seen over the course of the season. So a shout out to Drew Sellen, 10 catches, 159 receiving yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. He has 12 receiving touchdowns on the season. That's tied for second in the NAIA. Oh, but wait, there's more. The 4th passing touchdown that Chevalier threw went to Zach Norton. He had 1 catch for 29 yards, and it was for a touchdown. The senior returned after having been out for 5 games, back on the field, and a big time shout out. There you go. And I'm going to go ahead and put this, as we like to say here, throw this one up. I'm going to throw this one up there really quickly. Been out since early in the season with a broken collarbone, limited action, but 1 catch for 29 yards. A good way to ease back in. I'd say he eased back in very well. So big time shout out to Zach Norton, an upperclassman. And so, these games, you don't get to play forever. And I'm sure that there's so many people in the chat right now and who watch this broadcast that absolutely you get it. You understand this. I mean, I'm one of them. It's been years and years since I've been on the basketball court, much less the baseball diamond or even the football field. That was a long time ago. I was more of I was less of a contact sport player. You can probably tell with this frame. Anyway, you want all the games you can get. So a big time shout out to Dale and to Zach Norton. He's back. And I know this was foretold last week on the broadcast. That exactly right, Dave. You heard it here first. We thought there was a chance it was going to happen. I was excited, but I was cautious. and waiting to see how this was going to play out. So big time shout out to Zach Norton for that. And of course, Drew Sellen with 3 other touchdowns there on the way. Jeff says, Z Chevy to Norton, TD on his first play back. And so big time. I'm excited for that. So that means Morningside, by the way, one of those teams now that locked up that playoff spot for real and for sure. So the Mustangs, automatic bids from the GPAC, and they're going to be in the playoffs. No one should be surprised by this, but now it's official. So on Wednesday night, we're going to talk about the teams that we think still have potential to make the playoffs, some who are automatic bids. Be sure for the live broadcast, or be here for that, and it should be at 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 o'clock Central. If there's any change to that, it'll just be pushed back 30 minutes. All right, moving on along, staying with the GPAC here. Number 7, Dort, 7-2. They're 7-2 because Northwestern made them that way. 7-2 Northwestern, and the Red Raiders stick around in the hunt for a playoff spot. Defending national runners-up, national champions from 2 years ago. There's still a lot of players who have that experience that are on this team. And Clayton Bosma with a blocked field goal attempt, potentially game tying. That's right. The game was 3-0, and that's where it ended because of the Red Raiders defense. 8 seconds left in the fourth quarter. Bosma with the block. Eli Stater, the kicker for Northwestern, proves to get the game winner. A 38-yard field goal with 12:49 remaining in the third quarter. That's all the points that were scored. And I go back again. We talked about this last week with Morningside taking care of business and a couple of these games in the GPAC. If you told me the over-under was going to be even 40, 30, I'm taking the over. And it was nowhere near that because of the great defense that's being played. Northwestern's defense is big time. We know Dort's defense is big time. We've seen now Morningside's defense against Northwestern. It's big time. Whoever represents the GPAC in the playoffs, Morningside, and should there be a second team out of the GPAC, you're going to get to see some defense played because the defense is really stepping up as the season goes along. Moving on along, Jason with this comment, the Baker Wildcats and the defense is for real. You know what? We've been talking about defense. Let's continue talking about defense right now. Baker 20, Mid-American Nazarene 14. This is where that graphic comes up just a little bit. And I want to throw this out here for you as we move into this part of the program. I'll put this right up here. I live, and this program is based in the great state of Oklahoma. And I'm a fan of Oklahoma. One of my daughters performed as Lori in Oklahoma before. She's a brilliant singer, actress, dancer. I mean, she's a triple threat when it comes to that. Also, by the way, that particular daughter is a 2-time NAIA All-American. Just saying. That having been said, I like Oklahoma. I have no doubt that when Rodgers and Hammerstein were writing Oklahoma in the music, they were in either Weatherford, Oklahoma or Alva, Oklahoma, home of Southwestern and Northwestern respectively, where the wind comes sweeping down the plain. Apparently, you know what? Wind was a big factor. And we heard and saw that this was a big, big factor in Kansas as well, in Wichita and in Olathe on Saturday. By the way, shout out to anybody who can give me the reference for this logo. Of course, Oklahoma came from the musical. Where did this logo come from? Would love to hear that if you know it. There's some Kansas folks out there. Olathe, the wind was blowing big time. Didn't matter. Baker's defense stepped it up. Now, Mid-American Nazarene gets points on defense as well, but Baker's defense holds Adrian Parsons and the Pioneers in check, and that's the first time that's happened this season. First loss on the docket for Mid-American Nazarene. I said and have said for the last 2 weeks, Jason, and just in case you're new to the channel or if you weren't there for that, Baker is a playoff-worthy team in its own right, whether or not it wins the automatic bid to the playoffs. I will tell you this. It's all in a tizzy now in the Heart South. Once again, you have 3 teams with 1 loss that beat each other, and it's the same round-robin field from last year. And there we go. Great band, Jeff. Thank you very much. There's the Kansas reference. It is one of my favorite bands. They are and were, some of them, unfortunately, brilliant musicians on a level that we haven't seen too often since then. Baker's defense gets it done, but Truman Julesgaard also is leading the way once again. 11 for 26 passing, 145 passing yards. He had 2 passing touchdowns, carried the ball 15 times for 87 yards as well. It's an offense with good leadership, especially now that Julesgaard is back. Again, Hegeman came in, did a good job, but Julesgaard leading the way there makes a difference for Baker. They are a fantastic team on defense. They're a fantastic team on offense, and we'll talk about it more on Wednesday night, but I don't want to go too far. Man, I haven't gotten anywhere near through toward getting to the top 5 because we're talking about this. It's just a lot to go on. Fun fact, Rob says Baker's defensive backs dropped 3 interceptions. Offense dropped 4 passes in the red zone, and it was a muffed punt return and kickoff return as well. Yeah, big-time play overall. Could have been more for Baker in that. And a shout-out to Baker because it's a Baker team last year that did the same thing. The Mid-American Nazarene put more points on the board, twice that many points on the board exactly. As a matter of fact, they had 40 last year. It's a tough one. But Mid-American Nazarene also obviously still in the hunt for a playoff spot. We'll see how it all plays out. Jason, new to the channel this year. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate that. Please subscribe and stay in the chat. We just enjoy seeing all kinds of folks from all around to come and be a part of the broadcast with us, especially here on a Sunday night. All right. Montana Tech's number 10 taking on MSU Northern and kept the lights still with a 0 in the win column. Tech defeats Northern 54-14. Lander Smith with 13 carries, 140 rushing yards, and 3 rushing touchdowns. How about this one from the Mid-South? Number 12, Georgetown, over number 24, Campbellville, 24-17. We picked this one Thursday night. I said it'd be Georgetown, and I'd really credit the defense on that one, and it was the defense for Georgetown. Not to take away from what Garrick Slunaker did, 1 passing touchdown, 1 rushing touchdown, including the game-winning touchdown in overtime. That was a 1-yard carry for Slunaker there. Justin Richardson with a 48-yard interception return for a touchdown. That's what gave the Tigers, the Georgetown Tigers, to make sure that we get that right, enough points, 17, to get it into overtime when Campbellville came back. And how about John Carter Myers? 6 tackles on the day, 2 pass breakups on the day, and he had the game-winning forced fumble. I mean, Campbellville just barely got its opportunity in offense before John Carter Myers comes through, strips, gets the ball out of I know his name, quarterback. It starts with a G. And Gillis, there we go, has 6 letters. It's that Wheel of Fortune game that runs around in my head. Get it out of Gillis' hands, and Georgetown locks up the win. With this, Georgetown locks up the Mid-South title and the playoff spot. The Georgetown Tigers are going back to the playoffs, a team I would not want to meet in the first round. And if they continue to rise through the NAIA rankings, not ratings, they will likely get a bye in that first weekend and not play till the second weekend. And it depends on where they will be, whether it is at home, on the road, just depends on how high they rise in those rankings. Number 25, Southwestern. Let's go to the KCAC. I know Elisa likes to talk about that. And the winds were crazy on Saturday. They absolutely were in that part of Oklahoma and into Kansas. Christian Stewart with 9 carries for 82 yards, 1 rushing touchdown. It was a 54-yard rushing touchdown. Southwestern over Evangel, 21-3. We picked Southwestern here, but I thought it would be more Braden Howell. And Howell did his job, but I thought, again, it was going to be more Braden Howell in this one. Defense steps up, shuts down Evangel at home there on the turf there in Nixa. Big-time effort for Southwestern in this one. And because of that, and then the next game, also a wind-assisted game, if you will. Number 20, Friends, the Cardiac Kids. My goodness. I mean, someone's going to have to invest seriously in Rolaids or Tums or Mylanta or something to keep everyone's stomach at ease, because the Friends Falcons are not doing anything to make anyone easy if you're a Friends fan. 36-35, Friends wins, goes to 9-1, 3-1 in divisional play. McPherson 3-1 in divisional play. Southwestern, 3-1 in divisional play. Now 3 teams up there at the top of the KCAC. Will sort this out on Wednesday night, but just know there's a lot going on. Friends, by the way, passed the 4,000-yard mark this season again, rushing. Last year with 4,611 yards, I believe that was the final number. 4,000 plus right now, 4,056 to be exact, what they have through 10 games, averaging, well, that's an easy one, 405.6, 10 games there per game. Caden Rigsby, 3 carries, 91 rushing yards, and 2 rushing touchdowns. I will also tell you this. In following these games, I was out and about on Saturday trying to get some more video content at a football game, at a Division II football game on Saturday, and part of the afternoon. So I'm watching, then I'm going to stats and keeping things up with the computer and the phone and doing my part covering another game. The number I got, and Lisa, this would probably frustrate you, so I'll just tell you, I thought that Friends had lost. I thought McPherson had already won the game 35-29, because on a site that I was following the game on, it was listed 35, McPherson 35, Friends 29 final. So I thought the Bulldogs had won and were just going to, go pretty much possibly undefeated through the Kessinger division. It wasn't until about an hour to an hour and a half later that I found out, and actually called somebody that's up there that follows Friends very closely. And we had a conversation. I said, which one of these numbers is right? I don't know. And found out that Friends actually did win. So I did go back and watch the video and get to see that. I'll tell you what, Zabo's a good quarterback. Zabo is an absolutely good quarterback. McPherson, with just 1 loss right now, but 2 losses overall. That's going to be tough to make it to the playoffs. All right, let's go ahead and push. Yeah, Lisa, you can guess who I called. There was no question who I called on that one. Right, we'll see if he shows up in the chat. There we go. Reinhardt over Kentucky Christian, 41-20. Reinhardt now 4-1 in Appalachian Conference play. Took care of business, did what they needed to do. Stephen Craig with 9 carries and 2 rushing touchdowns. Point defeated Union Commonwealth 29-13. Point got out to a 19-0 lead in the first quarter, didn't look back. Mitchell Gossett, 18 for 33 passing, 251 yards, 2 passing touchdowns, no picks. Pikeville had a bye, which means there are 3 teams now at the top of the Appalachian Conference, each with 1 loss, and they've defeated each other in that round robin look. We'll see how it sorts out. We know, according to Corey reporting from NAIA ball, what the breakdown is and how the tiebreaker is. We also stay in contact with the conference, the sports information director, glorified sports information director from the Appalachian Conference. We'll talk a little bit more about it on Wednesday. Just know that nothing's settled there. Cumberland 50-0 over Faulkner, no doubt there. Jacob Cornejo, 15 carries, 153 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. Luke Holloway passed the ball well, but ran the ball even better, 16 carries for 105 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns along with the passing touchdown. Concordia is now 5-5 in the swan song season. The Cardinals are continuing to say, hey, listen, we're not done yet. They have 1 more game, but it was senior day in Ann Arbor, and Concordia defeated Lawrence Tech 31-10. Next week it's at Taylor. And speaking of Taylor, the Trojans said, you know what? We think that you need to be paying attention to us for an at-large bid. Just 2 losses on the season. And Taylor said, no, Madonna's not going to be another loss. Madonna, unfortunately, has lost now 40 consecutive games. Taylor with a 91-28 absolute beatdown of the Crusaders, led by Dakota Sonicson, 2 carries, 114 yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. That's right, folks. If you are scoring this at home, 57 yards per carry. That's an amazing number. All right. Oh, by the way, and to Madonna's credit, Nashawn Williams, 9 carries for 158 rushing yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. Not a bad day any other day. St. Francis of Indiana will be going to the playoffs now, having secured at least a share of the Midwest Division in the Mid-States Football Association and secured the automatic bid from that division with a 27-14 win over St. Xavier. The Cougars have now won 5 straight and secured that spot. Joshua Kulka, 29 for 43 passing, 313 passing yards, 4 passing touchdowns, 1 interception on the day. Kulka continues to have a fantastic season. Culver Stockton didn't pick this one right. 42-31 over William Penn. And the Wildcats scored not just on offense, but all around. Picked up a missed field goal and scored on an 86-yard return there. A 29-yard fumble recovery as well. Culver Stockton, by the way, was outgained in this. And the reason I talk about the defense is that Culver Stockton was outgained 486 to 316. Better than 50% more for William Penn on the day in total offense, and yet Culver Stockton comes away with an 11-point victory. Nicholas Jarrett, 36 carries for 210 rushing yards, had 2 rushing touchdowns. 36 of the 56 Culver Stockton plays went as rushing plays with the ball in Jarrett's hand on the day. By the way, for William Penn, Destin Loring, we haven't talked about him much this year. He had 31 carries for 262 rushing yards and 3 rushing touchdowns on the day. Unfortunately for him, it was in a loss. Marion also making a statement to be an at-large team, and I think there's a lot to be said for the Knights. 76-6 on senior day for Marion, the 4th largest victory in school history according to margin of victory. Only 392 yards of total offense. Here's another defensive game where the Knights came up with 2 pick sixes and special teams, a punt return for a touchdown as well. Keegan LaBelle on offense, by the way, though, 10 carries, 116 yards. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. Kansas Wesleyan, not to be confused with Kansas, the band, 23-20, and the Coyotes have clinched at least a share of the Bissell title and secured the playoff spot in the making. To the North Star, where, sticking with the GPAC. Let's go back to the GPAC. There we go. I was thinking ahead to Dakota State. Dakota Wesleyan 35-7 over Briar Cliff. Kobe Kaiser, 10 carries, 146 rushing yards, and 4 rushing touchdowns on the day. St. Francis of Illinois, the Fighting Tumulties, with a 38-13 victory over Olivet Nazarene. Sam Tumulty, 19 for 30 passing, 145 passing yards, 19 carries for 138 rushing yards, and 4 rushing touchdowns. Missouri Baptist to the Heart. And this one was a Heart crossover matchup. So Graceland didn't need this to stay in the hunt to try to get the bid from the North. And it's a good thing for the Yellow Jackets because the Spartans took them out. 32-20, the final score on the day. Graceland went up 20-8 midway through the third quarter, but Missouri Baptist comes back with 24 unanswered points. Jason Buryanek, he has something going on. Year 2 now for Missouri Baptist in the Heart Conference. And the Spartans are now 6-3, 3-2 in divisional play. So keep your eye on Coach Jason Buryanek's team and the Missouri Baptist Spartans in the future there. This was a divisional matchup, so Graceland didn't get a loss in that division column. We'll talk about that in just a second. For Missouri Baptist, Lionel Banks, 33 carries, 136 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns. And for Graceland, of course, Gerald Monroe continues to have a stellar season. 7 receptions, 150 receiving yards, 2 receiving touchdowns. He has 22 touchdown grabs on the year. That is tops in the NAIA. Graceland on the road at Grandview for an automatic playoff bid. That's next week. Grandview, we believe, is in anyway. Graceland needs this win to make it on the playoffs. 4-loss Graceland team will not be making the playoffs. So that's for next week. Midland over Doane, and that was a big game for Tyson Dinkert, who is leading the NAIA, actually second in the NAIA, 126.1 rushing yards per game. He had 3 rushing touchdowns and 124, right at his average for yesterday. Missouri Valley, 35. William Woods, 3. Devontae Armstrong, 10 carries, 136 rushing yards, 3 rushing touchdowns as the Vikings take down the Owls. Benedictine over Central Methodist as we go back to the Heart, or stay with the Heart, Jackson Dooley, 22 for 30 passing, 343 passing yards, 2 passing touchdowns. He had a rushing touchdown as well. Bethel, 50. Bethany, 14. This is the other Kessinger Division game. Bethel with 4 passing touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns, 1 interception return for a touchdown. This is a Bethel team that we haven't seen throw the ball much in recent years, and yet maybe this is a shift right now. 4 of the 7 touchdowns scored were passing touchdowns, including a throw to James Menard. He had 2 catches for 25 yards and 1 receiving touchdown. It was the first touchdown catch of the day. He's a 2-sport athlete for Bethel. Now, I realize that, as you go along, there are a number of 2-sport stars, even some 3-sport stars in some universities. I think sometimes when you get out of the Division I level, you're going to get some crossover there. You get down to Division II, you get some crossover. Maybe NAIA, there are 2-sport stars, not so many 3-sport stars. But this one's interesting to me. Props to Jason Menard. It's his first receiving touchdown of the season, but he's been playing not just football, but tennis. He's a member of the Bethel tennis team, and a big part of what they do there for the Threshers and the tennis program, which plays matches in the fall and also plays matches in the spring too. So, I mean, it's a full year for James Menard, and he had his first touchdown reception of the season. Way back when in Orange, Texas, he threw for some touchdowns. I think his senior year, he was close to 500 yards passing, 500 yards rushing as well. So a dual threat when he was taking the snaps there in Orange, Texas. But Jason Menard, how about that? His first receiving touchdown of the year, a 2-sport star, football and tennis. Football and tennis. Well, you just don't see that one very often. All right, had to throw that out there. We're beyond the 5. Dakota State, 7-0 over Mayville State. Dakota State secures a winning record, now 6-3 overall. Tice Ortman, 26 carries, 126 rushing yards, 1 rushing touchdown. And on defense, Trey Ortman had an interception as well. Davion Moses with 2 picks on the day. Dickinson State, 42-24 over Valley City State. Will Madler, 17 for 24 passing, 246 passing yards, 3 passing touchdowns. Nelson, 31. Panhandle State, 21. DeKevion Rose, 30 carries for 88 rushing yards, 2 rushing touchdowns on the day. We're still highlighting some big days for folks before we get to the top 5. Mount Marty also secured a winning season with a 24-21 victory over Hastings. It's the first winning season in program history for Mount Marty's football team. And obviously with 6 wins, that's the most wins the program has had as well. 6-4 right now on the year. Rocky Mountain, 49. Arizona Christian, 24. Graydon Buell, 16 for 26 passing, 266 passing yards, 5 passing touchdowns, and 1 interception on the day. Southern Oregon, 49 over Eastern Oregon, 21. Gunnar Yates tops in the NAIA, now at 137 rushing yards per game. He had 269 rushing yards on Saturday and 1 rushing touchdown. And finally, as we are wrapping up our Beyond the 5 segment here, Weber International, 52. Warner, 28. Terry Weems Jr. with 4 rushing touchdowns, had 14 carries for 251 rushing yards on the day. So that's how we wrap up Beyond the 5. We're going to go to our top 5 performances of the week. And let me quickly say that thanks to everyone for watching and for being in the chat already today. I appreciate you stopping by that. If you haven't already and you're watching us on the live broadcast here on a Sunday night, let us know from where you're watching, maybe who your favorite NAIA football team is. We'd love to talk about that. And hopefully we mention them here on the program. We try to get just about every game in, but sometimes it takes a little longer. And I don't want to bore you as we're going on to the top 5, which I'm about to drop that graphic here and let you know who those top 5 performances are. Also, I would say if you haven't yet subscribed to the channel, please do subscribe to the channel. I have almost enjoyed being able to say this lately. I don't know. We know this much about what it does for the algorithm for the channel, but it's really it's encouraging to see the number go up. So I encourage you, please subscribe to the channel. And also, if you'd like to, please consider joining and being a member. That is also a big part of what we do here. And at the end of this broadcast and at the end of all of our videos that we do, and we already know there are 2 more for sure coming up on Monday, either on Monday or Monday and Tuesday. I'm not going to say who they are just yet because every time I do that, something happens and we don't get to have that guest. So I'm just telling you, there are 2 secured already, probably 3 for Monday and Tuesday before the live show on Wednesday. Now, we always talk about the folks who are members of the channel there and want to thank them on that outro. And so that could be part of what's going on. Get your name in the outro there. So please consider joining and becoming a member. All right. The more I talk here, the less I'm talking about the top five. So let's talk about the top five. There are our top five performances. These were our picks for top five performances in NAIA football in or from week 11. Hey, Alpine. Hey, glad that you are here, and go Kaiser. Appreciate that. Let's get to our top five and talk about them. There is no number, but the number 5 St. Thomas Bobcats with another win, taking down Thomas on Saturday. Excuse me. Rontavious Farmer, once again, 11 carries, 234 rushing yards. He had 21.3 yards per carry. Fantastic afternoon for him. 3 rushing touchdowns. He is continuing to lift his Georgia career, or his Georgia rushing king mark. He's the all-time leader, collegiate rushing yards for the state of Georgia. And that number is now 5,322. Rontavious Farmer. And it's a big part in helping St. Thomas in the NAIA playoff field. We believe that St. Thomas will be an at-large bid to the playoffs. Okay, that's, again, it's not locked up, as Kaiser locked up the playoff spot from the Sun Conference. But in the number 5 spot currently in the NAIA official rankings, not ratings, then we think that Thomas obviously is not going to go down in the rankings there. So keep that in mind. Rontavious Farmer, another big day, 21.3 rushing yards per carry, 3 rushing touchdowns. How about Kendrick Connolly from Texas College? Second time we've had a player from Texas College this season in the top 5. And Connolly, 19 for 32 passing, 395 passing yards. It was the big number of the day, passing yards for week 11, 4 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. And Texas College did something big. Defeated Wayland Baptist by 2 points, 38-36 was the final. It's now a 6-3 record, because and we're not talking about even the game against Westgate Christian. So I don't think that's a countable NAIA game. I've been looking to do some internet sleuthing on this one. I don't think it's a countable game. 6-3 overall, the record. That means that Texas College has locked in a winning record, not unlike what we were talking about with Mount Marty and with Dakota State just a little bit earlier. A winning record is the first time the Steers have had a winning record since 2005. That was 19 years ago. Shout out to Kendrick Connolly and his performance, and the Steers with the big victory over a Wayland Baptist program. Texas College, Wayland Baptist, programs that are on the rise. Keep that one in mind. The Bethel Wildcats. I was talking about 2 sports stars a while ago. How about the Bethel Wildcats? The logo's right. At least I got that right up there. Avon Rucker with a big-time day. 27 for 43 passing, 320 passing yards, 17 carries for 56 yards rushing, 2 rushing touchdowns. Now, his rushing touchdowns were both in regulation. And the reason that's important is because Bethel and Lindsey Wilson didn't conclude their game in 60 minutes on the field. Both of Rucker's touchdowns were rushing touchdowns. He didn't make a passing touchdown during regulation. He was saving his passing skills, I guess, for, it's 27 for 33, 320 yards. I guess he was saving getting it across the goal line for the score till overtime. Both teams scored and got 7 points in overtime, got the extra point. In the second overtime, that's right, they played a second overtime, where both teams with a touchdown have to go for 2. Both Bethel and Lindsey Wilson scored touchdowns, both went for 2. Rucker with a passing score for the 2-point conversion, and both teams are now tied 29 all. In the third overtime, and by the way, they went to a third overtime, both teams simply line up at the 3 and do 2-point conversion play. So you get 2 points. That's the most you can get in every overtime from the third overtime on. I won't sit here and get my soapbox out and tell you what I think about the overtime setup as it is in college football. I mentioned last week, I don't have a problem with the tie in college football, but be that as it may, guess what? It was a Rucker pass for Bethel to get the 2 points. Lindsey Wilson also gets 2 points. They go to a fourth overtime. And in that fourth overtime, as they go for 2, how about this? Another complete pass from Rucker. He scored both of the touchdowns on the ground in regulation, and all 3 of the 2-point conversions were Rucker passes complete for those 2 points as well. A fantastic day for him. Bethel with a big-time victory, which pretty much takes Lindsey Wilson out of the hunt for the playoffs again for the second year in a row. How about the Bethel Wildcats? Big-time win there, and Avon Rucker on that one. St. Ambrose, the Fighting Bees, and they're fighting near the end of this regular season. Didn't seem to have much fight in the early part, but another win, 50-22. Tamel Staples, 31 for 44 passing, 452 passing yards, 6 passing touchdowns, and no interceptions. 452 passing yards, by the way, is a new school record at St. Ambrose. And Jalen Coleman, 13 receptions, 244 of those 452 passing yards went to Coleman. He had 4 of the 6 touchdowns that he brought in for the score. 244 receiving yards, his third most in school history. Staples and Coleman make our list of top 5 performances. And finally, Texas Wesleyan and Ernest Caesar. And by the way, I did spell Caesar right. That's how he spells Caesar. The Rams have moved to 9-0, 7-0 in Sooner Athletic Conference play. With this win, Texas Wesleyan secures at least a share of the Sooner Athletic Conference title, but more importantly, secured the playoff spot from the Sooner Athletic Conference as well. 49-7 over Langston. Caesar, 25 carries, 212 rushing yards, 6 rushing touchdowns. And Ram Sports Net, the Texas Wesleyan website, reporting he's now the all-time leader in rushing touchdowns for a season at 33. And they posted that, put that out there. 32 was the number I had seen online, but it was a dated number, so I want to make sure that number was right. But Ram Sports Net reporting that Caesar is now the all-time leader in rushing touchdowns for a season. Congratulations to Ernest Caesar. So Farmer, Connolly, Rucker, Staples, Coleman, and Caesar on the list for top 5 performances, players, and teams for Week 11. Okay, see, I don't want there to be any dead ear. I don't want there to be dead ears. I don't want there to be dead air either. Dead ears? I don't know. Anyway, I don't want there to be dead air, so I want to make sure that I'm continuing to talk, and Mrs. Midwest Sportsnet will tell you that definitely that I can talk for a long, long time. That having been said, occasionally you have to take a break and take a breath. So that's what I'm doing now. Lisa probably missed the live shows on Wednesday and Thursday due to commitments. Catch the replays. Please do catch the replays, and I appreciate that. Thank you, Lisa, for stopping by tonight. I know we're going to talk about Friends. I know we're going to talk about Kaiser. I know we're going to talk about Morningside. I know we're going to talk about Gracin. I know that we're going to talk about so many other places and schools on Wednesday, and then especially on Thursday, because we will preview all of the games. And there might be, I think I saw there may be up to 48 games. We'll check that out on Thursday. But in the final week of the regular season for the NAIA, we're going to be talking playoffs and so many other things, and we'll preview those games. So we know for sure there will be at least 1 or 2 videos on Monday, and the other one may be on Tuesday. There may be a third. We're hoping to hear back from one of the other schools. We get to talk with coaches and players and broadcasters. That's a lot of fun. I like broadcast. Well, I like broadcasting. I don't like every broadcaster, but I like most of them. I've made some good friends over the years, so we know that's what's coming up. A shout out really quickly then to everyone, and thank you for watching. And shout out to Elisa, to Alpine. Thank you very much. Jason, Rob, Jeff, Michael, and of course, Dave and Dale for being on the broadcast as well. Shout out to you and your kids. Man, I'm so stoked. Obviously, to Michael, and a shout out to Wyatt as well. And Drew's just had a fantastic season. I'm so stoked to see Zach back out there on the field, and what a great way to make his re-entry to the football field with a touchdown pass or reception, actually, 29-yard touchdown reception. So Morningside in the playoffs, Kaiser in the playoffs, And we know these things for sure. Michael, thank you for watching. Great job. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I'm glad you enjoyed it because I sure did enjoy being here. So I will give my final shout out to Jody, otherwise known as Mrs. Midwest Sportsnet, because whether she watched or not, she makes things possible. So I get to do this as well, and she helps out a lot. And I appreciate it. We have different lighting tonight. Don't know if you noticed that or not. Thursday we experimented. Tonight we're experimenting. I like this one better, and Jody helped me with some of the lighting for that, so I hope it looks okay, and I'm not washed out too much. We're still going to make some adjustments. All right, Wednesday night, 8 o'clock Eastern, 7 Central, unless there is a change, and that would just be to move it back 30 minutes. Thursday night, already at 8:30 Eastern, 7:30 Central, we'll be at a volleyball game for just a little while and then be here for the live broadcast on Thursday. And then, of course, we'll wrap up the regular season after that. So anything else? I think that we have it all. All right. God bless you all. Thank you very much for watching. Please consider, again, joining, becoming a member of the channel. That's always fun. We appreciate that. And if you have not yet subscribed, please do that. We'd appreciate that. If you watched all night, thanks a lot. And if you're watching the replay and you made it this far, 46 minutes in, right about now, well, you are an absolute trooper. So thank you for doing that as well. God bless you all. Have a great, great night, and get ready for one final week of NAIA football.